"Excuse me," she began, her voice dripping with disdain, "but I'm here to inform you that your activity is causing a disturbance." "Disturbance?" I echoed, my brow furrowed in confusion. "But Karen, everyone's having a good time. The food's delicious, the music's playing, the kids are, well, they're occupied with the bouncy castle I rented. What's the problem?" Karen sniffed, her nose wrinkling as if she'd just smelled something foul. "The problem," she declared, her voice rising in indignation, "is the smoke. The excessive smoke. It's polluting the air, disrupting the neighborhood's tranquility, and quite frankly, it's ruining my afternoon tea." "Ruining your afternoon tea?" I repeated, incredulous. "Karen, it's a BBQ. It's supposed to be smoky. That's kind of the point." "The point," Karen retorted, her voice laced with authority, "is to conform to community standards, and excessive smoke is not in line with our vision of a harmonious suburban environment." "Harmonious?" I scoffed. "You mean boring? You want to turn our neighborhood into a sterile, scent-free zone where the only acceptable activity is pruning your perfectly manicured lawn?" Karen's eyes narrowed. "I'm warning you," she said, her voice dangerously low. "This barbaric activity needs to stop, or there will be consequences." And with that, she spun on her heel and marched back to her house, leaving a trail of indignation and the faint scent of lavender potpourri in her wake. I stared after her, my spatula hanging limply in my hand. This wasn't just about a BBQ anymore. This was about Karen's relentless pursuit of control, her obsession with conformity, her war on fun. And I, for one, was not going to back down. "My name is Matt, and I love to grill. Seriously, I love it. There's something about the sizzle of meat on a hot grill, the smell of smoke and spices wafting through the air, the camaraderie of friends and family gathered around the fire. It just doesn't get any better. My backyard BBQs were legendary, a haven of good food, good vibes, and good times. Neighbors would stop by, drawn by the irresistible aroma of grilling goodness, and we'd share stories, laughs, and maybe a cold beverage or two. It was the perfect suburban idyll, a microcosm of community spirit and culinary camaraderie. That is, until Karen happened. Karen, the self-appointed ruler of our HOA, the queen bee of suburban conformity, well, you know. She was the type of person who believed that fun was a violation of community standards, that laughter disrupted the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood, and that the smell of grilling meat was an act of environmental terrorism. It was a Saturday afternoon, the sun shining, the burgers sizzling, the laughter echoing through the backyard. I was in my element, spatula in hand, flipping patties and basking in the glow of my grilling prowess. That was when she showed up and went on her Karen episode. Karen, true to her nature, didn't stop at a mere verbal complaint. Oh no, she went full Karen, escalating the situation to a level of absurdity that would make your head spin. She called the HOA, her voice dripping with indignation, demanding immediate action against my barbaric BBQ. "It's a public nuisance!" she shrieked into the phone. "The smoke, the smell, it's unbearable, it's unauthorized air pollution." The HOA, bless their bureaucratic hearts, actually sent someone to investigate. A timid little man named Mr. Henderson, armed with a clipboard and a look of profound discomfort, timidly approached me as I flipped burgers. "Mr. Matt," he began, his voice barely a whisper, "we've received a complaint about your grilling activities." "Grilling activities?" I echoed, raising an eyebrow. "You mean the delicious BBQ I'm hosting for my friends and neighbors?" Mr. Henderson's eyes darted nervously between me and the grill, as if expecting it to suddenly erupt in flames. "Yes, well," he stammered, "it seems the smoke, the smell, it's causing a disturbance." "A disturbance?" I chuckled. "Mr. Henderson, have you ever been to a BBQ? Smoke and delicious smells are kind of the point. Mr. Henderson wrung his hands. I understand, but Mrs. Karen, she's quite insistent. She even contacted the city claiming you're violating air quality regulations. The city? I exclaimed, incredulous. For grilling burgers in my backyard? This is getting ridiculous. But Karen, it seemed, was unstoppable. She had somehow managed to convince a city official to issue a warning notice, a flimsy piece of paper threatening consequences if I continued my unauthorized air pollution. I stared at the notice, the absurdity of it all washing over me. This wasn't just about a BBQ anymore. This was about Karen's relentless quest for control, her war on fun, her vendetta against anything that didn't fit her narrow-minded vision of suburban perfection. And that's when I snapped. "Oh, Karen," I muttered to myself, a mischievous grin spreading across my face. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." It was time to fight fire with fire, or rather, smoke with smoke. A lot of smoke. Karen wanted a war on BBQ? Fine. I'd give her a war she'd never forget. A war fought not with weapons, but with spatulas, tongs, and enough meat to feed a small army. I was going to throw a block party cookout so epic, so over the top, so gloriously smoky, that Karen would be begging for a gas mask. "You think my little BBQ was a nuisance, Karen?" I muttered to myself, a mischievous grin spreading across my face. "Just wait till you see this." The first step was spreading the word. I printed flyers, the kind with bright colors and cartoonish fonts that screamed fun. I plastered them on every telephone pole, every bulletin board, every available surface in the neighborhood. I even slipped one under Karen's door, just for good measure. Next, the online campaign. I took to the neighborhood Facebook group, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I typed out an invitation that was equal parts enthusiastic and subtly mocking. "Attention, neighbors," I wrote. "Get ready for the biggest, baddest, most bodacious BBQ block party this side of the Mississippi. We're talking mountains of meat, rivers of sauce, and enough sides to sink a battleship. Live music, bouncy castles, and maybe even a petting zoo, if I can convince Mr. Johnson to bring his prize-winning chickens. This Saturday, my backyard. Everyone's invited, except Karen. Sorry, Karen, no smoke inhalation allowed." The response was overwhelming. Neighbors, tired of Karen's tyranny and eager for a good time, flooded my inbox with RSVPs. Even Mr. Henderson, the timid HOA president, sent a message expressing his enthusiastic support, though he did request a vegetarian option. With the guest list secured, it was time to bring in the big guns, a professional catering team. I wasn't about to handle this culinary extravaganza on my own. I needed experts, grill masters who could handle the sheer volume of meat I had planned. "We're talking brisket," I explained to the head chef, a burly man named Big Tony with a handlebar mustache and a surprisingly delicate touch with a spice rub. "Ribs, burgers, hot dogs, sausages, and a whole roasted pig." Big Tony's eyes widened. "A whole pig," he repeated, a grin spreading across his face. "You're my kind of people." The day of the cookout, my backyard was transformed into a carnivore's paradise. Grills of all shapes and sizes lined the perimeter, their smoke rising like a defiant middle finger to Karen's house. A giant rotisserie, custom-built for the occasion, slowly rotated a whole pig, its glistening skin crackling with deliciousness. The smell, oh the smell, was intoxicating, a symphony of smoky, meaty goodness that wafted across the neighborhood, a direct assault on Karen's olfactory senses. And then there she was, Karen, her face a mask of disgust, her nose wrinkled in distaste, emerged from her house like a villain from a silent movie. She surveyed the scene, her eyes widening in horror. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked, her voice barely audible above the sizzle of the grills and the laughter of the crowd. "It's a block party, Karen," I replied calmly, gesturing towards the festivities. "Care to join us? We have plenty of air pollution." Karen sputtered, her face turning an interesting shade of purple. This was just the beginning. The Karen versus BBQ showdown was about to reach its climax. The aroma of sizzling meat filled the air as the day progressed, a fragrant invitation to all who dared to enter. The backyard transformed into a culinary battleground, a testament to my defiance and a delicious middle finger to the HOA. The aroma of sizzling meat filled the air, a fragrant invitation to all who dared to enter. The backyard transformed into a culinary battleground, a testament to my defiance and a testament to the power of community spirit. The party reached its crescendo as the sun began to set. Laughter and music filled the air, the aroma of sizzling meat mingling with the scent of freshly cut grass. Children chased each other around the bouncy castle, their squeals of delight a stark contrast to Karen's growing fury. And then she appeared. Karen, her face a mask of disgust, her nose wrinkling in distaste. She surveyed the scene, the mountain of meat, the sea of smiling faces, and the plumes of smoke billowing towards her house. Karen sputtered, her face turning an alarming shade of purple. "Enough of this!" she shrieked. "This is chaos! It's noise! It's the smell of meat!" The crowd, sensing the drama, erupted in laughter. Karen, the self-proclaimed guardian of suburban tranquility, had become the villain of the story. Her attempts to silence the joy and laughter had backfired spectacularly, turning my backyard into a symbol of community spirit and a resounding victory against her petty tyranny. Karen, defeated by my calm demeanor and the infectious joy of the party, resorted to her ultimate weapon, the police. She stormed back to her house, dialed 911, and unleashed a torrent of complaints about excessive noise, unlawful air pollution, and the general disruption of the peace. A few minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of my house. Two officers, looking more amused than concerned, approached me as I was flipping burgers. "Mr. Davis?" one of them asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "That's me," I replied, handing him a plate of ribs. "Care to try one? They're still warm." The officers, after a brief hesitation, accepted the ribs. As they devoured the delicious meat, they listened patiently as I explained the situation. They heard Karen's complaints, they witnessed the festive atmosphere of the party, and they tasted the evidence for themselves. "Ma'am," one of the officers said, returning Karen's phone call, "we understand your concerns, but it seems like everyone here is having a perfectly lawful and enjoyable time. And frankly," he added with a chuckle, "these ribs are incredible." Karen, sputtering with indignation, hung up the phone. Her reign of terror was officially over. Meanwhile, the party continued, the laughter and music growing louder. The neighborhood, tired of Karen's tyranny, embraced the spirit of the occasion. Neighbors who had previously kept to themselves mingled with strangers, sharing stories and enjoying the festive atmosphere. Even Mr. Henderson, the timid HOA president, made an appearance, clutching a plate of ribs and a nervous smile. This is quite something, Matt," he admitted, his eyes widening in surprise. "I must say, this is the most fun I've had in years." The local news caught wind of the BBQ block party and sent a reporter to the scene. The story, complete with footage of the festivities and interviews with the revelers, aired that evening, painting Karen as the neighborhood villain and highlighting the absurdity of her complaints. The segment went viral, turning my backyard into a local sensation and cementing my place in suburban legend. The HOA, already reeling from Karen's public humiliation, decided to hold an emergency meeting to discuss the BBQ incident. They knew they couldn't ban outdoor grilling altogether. That would be a public relations disaster. But they were determined to find a way to curb my enthusiasm, to rein in the spirit of defiance that had swept through the neighborhood. The HOA meeting was a tense affair. Karen, her face a mask of fury, stormed into the room, demanding immediate action against the unlawful BBQ bacchanalia. She proposed a new rule, a draconian measure that would effectively ban all outdoor cooking in the neighborhood. I, armed with a stack of photos from the party and a mischievous glint in my eye, rose to my feet. "Hold on a minute, Karen," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Before we start banning BBQs, perhaps we should consider the hypocrisy of this situation." I pointed out that several other neighbors, including Mrs. Higgins with her famous 4th of July hot dog cookouts and Mr. Henderson with his annual pig roast, enjoyed outdoor grilling without facing any repercussions. "It seems," I continued, "that the issue here isn't the grilling itself, but rather who is doing the grilling. If I, your friendly neighborhood rebel, can throw a successful BBQ, then everyone should be allowed to enjoy the same freedom." The room fell silent. Karen sputtered, searching for a counter-argument, but the truth of my words hung heavy in the air. The other HOA members, many of whom had enjoyed my BBQ, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Perhaps," Mr. Henderson, the newly appointed HOA president, finally spoke, his voice surprisingly firm. "Perhaps we should focus on more pressing matters, like, I don't know, maintaining the community pool." The meeting ended shortly thereafter, with the HOA's attempt to ban BBQs defeated. Karen, humiliated and defeated, stormed out of the room, her reign of terror finally over. The neighborhood, once a battleground of HOA tyranny, had blossomed into a haven of self-expression, a testament to the power of community spirit and the enduring appeal of a good backyard barbecue. The BBQ block party became an annual tradition, growing bigger and better each year. Word of our epic cookout spread throughout the neighborhood, and soon people were traveling from miles around to experience the culinary spectacle. I expanded my grilling arsenal, adding a custom-built smoker strategically placed near Karen's property line. The rich, smoky aroma of slow-cooked meats wafted through the air, a constant reminder of my victory and a subtle, yet effective form of olfactory torture for my nemesis. Karen, unable to bear the annual assault on her senses, eventually reached her breaking point. She sold her house, a move that was met with a collective sigh of relief from the neighborhood. The "For Sale" sign in her yard was adorned with a single, defiant strand of bacon, a final, silent tribute to my culinary triumph. The following year, I threw a farewell BBQ in her honor. The menu featured a special dish, the Karen Quencher, a fiery blend of spices that would make her sinuses weep. As the smoke curled towards her soon-to-be vacant house, I raised a glass of iced tea and toasted her departure. "Goodbye, Karen," I declared, "and good riddance." The neighborhood, once a battleground of HOA tyranny, had blossomed into a haven of self-expression, a place where the aroma of BBQ filled the air, a testament to the power of community spirit and the enduring appeal of a good backyard cookout. And I, the once targeted resident, had become a local legend, the champion of backyard grilling and the eternal thorn in the side of the HOA.